I hold logic in high regard. And I often find it frustrating when people propagate ideas that violate what is considered sound logical argumentation. Ever since I had learnt about logic and logical fallacies, I became hyper-aware. A phenomenon known as Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, I believe. But alas, I have been rather ignorant. Or at least I was. Despite seemingly flawless logical argumentation on topics for which I have discussed, rather than assuming people would want to at least be aware enough and orient their thinking to logic the moment I inform them, I should have started with explaining why it's a good idea to do so. Can you give a logical argument for why you should use logic? No, that's circular reasoning. We do, however, tend to use logic subconsciously. It's our thought processes, the logic of our brain's functions, that interpret information and decide upon the most optimal action according to our desires. In principle anyway. So while I may not be able to avoid using some logic, and as it is known one cannot derive an ought from an is, I am only left with displaying the benefits of logic. And leaving it up to the people I talk with. My dear listeners, to decide, without undue influence, whether or not you would like to use logic in your day-to-day. In the small town of Willow Creek, a public health crisis had emerged. A sudden surge in flu cases had prompted the local government to recommend a mandatory vaccination program. Some citizens, however, were vehemently opposed, arguing that the government was overstepping its bounds. The debate quickly became heated, with both sides shouting over each other in town hall meetings. It seemed that no one could agree, and emotions were running high. Jenna, a young epidemiologist who had recently moved to the town, had been following the debate closely. She had been invited to speak at the next town hall meeting and knew this was her chance to intervene. But she was well aware of the dangers of speaking in a situation fueled by emotion. She didn't want to alienate anyone, but she also knew she had the scientific data on her side. As the meeting began, the tension was palpable. Citizens from both sides of the debate stood up one after another, passionately voicing their opinions. Jenna took a deep breath and stood when the floor was finally opened to experts. She didn't start with the data or the statistics. Instead, she began with a question: can we all agree that we want what's best for our town? The room fell silent. She continued, what if, instead of assuming the worst about each other, we used the data to guide our decisions? Jenna then patiently walked the crowd through the evidence, explaining how vaccines worked and why, historically, mandatory vaccinations had led to the reduction of preventable diseases. She acknowledged the concerns of those who felt the government was overreaching, but urged them to consider the long-term benefits for the entire community. She didn't ignore emotions. She understood that fear and distrust of authority played a large role, but she reframed the debate as a collective problem-solving exercise. By the end of the meeting, there was a noticeable shift in the atmosphere. While not everyone agreed, the town council voted to implement the vaccination program, though they did so with added provisions for transparency and public oversight. The logical approach had allowed both sides to step back from their emotional positions and find a compromise based on reasoned discussion. Or in this story, Maria and Tom had been dating for almost 2 years. Lately, their relationship had felt strained, and they often found themselves arguing. It started with small things, Tom being late for dinner or Maria forgetting to text when she was running late. Over time, those minor annoyances began to build up. One evening, after Tom arrived late for the 3rd time that week, Maria confronted him. "Why can't you just be on time? I'm starting to think you don't care about me at all." Maria's voice trembled with frustration. Tom was taken aback. "What? I do care about you. That's not fair. I've been stuck at work, you know that." "I don't care about your excuses anymore," Maria snapped. "You always say you're too busy, but I'm starting to wonder if you're just not prioritizing me." Tom, hurt, responded defensively, "And maybe you're overreacting. You know how my job is. This isn't the first time I've been late." The argument spiraled quickly. Emotions surged, and neither of them was listening to the other anymore. That's when Tom paused, taking a deep breath. He wasn't sure why, but he suddenly realized they were talking past each other. He remembered something his friend had once said: feelings are important, but logic helps you understand where they come from. I think we're both missing the point here, Tom said, his tone softer. You're upset because you feel neglected. But I'm not doing this on purpose. I care about you, Maria. I know I've been late, and I'm sorry. But I don't want to keep making you feel this way. Maria was quiet for a moment. Then, she replied, I guess I'm just scared. Scared that if you keep being late, it'll mean you don't care, or that we're drifting apart. Tom nodded. I get that, and it's not that I don't care. I think we've both been letting small things snowball into bigger problems. Let's find a way to make sure this doesn't keep happening. They talked through their schedules and needs, what each of them valued in terms of time and attention. By the end of the evening, they had both apologized and come up with a plan to better communicate about their commitments. The argument wasn't resolved by simply ignoring their emotions, but by using logic to understand the root causes of their feelings. They recognized the value in each other's perspectives, and the logical discussion helped them move forward with a renewed sense of understanding and trust. Logic, it isn't the denial or dismissal of feelings entirely. Even if I hold it in high regard, I won't forget I am conversing with a human being. I am human too. I hurt too, I desire to, and I act in accordance to what I think is right without always evaluating whether it's the best logical thing to do. But if you be willing to heed me, knowing that I have no power over you. To like my videos, to subscribe, not even the power to be a remnant in your memories after you click away. Consider logic because you might not be correct. Why do I say this? Why the phrasing, sometimes no one is right or wrong? Sometimes the parties involved are in the middle, somewhat right and somewhat wrong. In this middle emotions flare, tribalism is rampant, failing to acknowledge that all sides are in a similar boat. It is my opinion that logic makes the gray gain color. The people in this situation gain perspective. So, they can stop, think, and hopefully re-evaluate their position. Who knows, maybe in the few seconds of calm, a life can be spared. Feelings, relationships. I hope that is the case, because afterward, when the veil of fallacy is removed, I can't guarantee any peace. I can't guarantee any protection. If you look around you and you see a mirror amongst a crowd, such that everything including the reflection in the mirror is a monster, how am I to tell you how to act? Maybe that's why everyone keeps fighting. Keeps moving forward. Or maybe, I need to grow more and develop my perspective. This video was a bit far off from my usual content. I am still working out a balance between entertainment and discussing societal dynamics, but once in a while I think it appropriate to share these thoughts of mine. If you have an opinion, share it. Be honest with how you feel about it and why you think it matters. I encourage you to try to be humble if your problems are addressed, but in a way that leads to a different conclusion of your own. Sometimes, it isn't about logic. Even if we assert it. Humans have apprehensions about so many things. It's okay to admit that sometimes, though for a warm reception, the only guarantee I can give is that I would care if you told me. I do care. And I will try and propagate this type of stance throughout my life.